Welcome to Not in a Huff with Jackson Huff, where we interview newsmakers, storytellers, and all-around interesting people. Sit back, relax, unless you're driving, and enjoy the show. Here's Jackson.
Hello. I am Jackson Huff. This is Not in a Huff. Thanks so much for joining me. As always, really appreciate it. This week, I'm interviewing Todd Ryan Jones. Now, Mr. Jones has a fascinating hobby, a fascinating skill. He is a professional strongman. Now, this world has two distinct different areas. The kind that you see on ESPN that are, moving boulders and picking up huge amounts of weights and look like the Incredible Hulk. That is competitive strongman. That's different than what Todd does. He does something that I guess can only really be described as old-time strongman. This is the kind of strongman things that you see in Renaissance fairs, that you see in circuses, that are things like bending horseshoes and driving nails through boards and just things that wow audiences, not necessarily in a competitive nature, but in a showmanship nature. With Todd, we're going to talk about what got him interested in this. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of the strongman world, about how strongmen used to not be in these sideshows and circuses. They used to actually be celebrities and hanging out with royalty. So we're going to talk kind of about that nature. We're going to talk about some of the amazing things that he has done, things that have gotten him in Ripley's Believe It or Not content, things that have given him Guinness World Records, things that only 200 people in history have been able to do that he's got himself on the record books for. This is just a fascinating conversation about a world that I didn't know much about. It's just a small world, a small group of people that do the old-time strongman type events and shows. I was so happy to talk with Todd. He also is a professional stuntman. We've talked to a stuntman in the past. We're going to briefly touch on what he does in the stunt world. He is based on the East Coast and is in a lot of TV shows. I talked to him fresh off a long day of filming on Blue Bloods. He was nice enough to join me the following morning, pretty wore out, so I thank him for that. But I think you're really going to enjoy this one. Here is Todd Ryan Jones. I'm here today with Todd Ryan Jones. Mr. Jones, how are you?
Hey, good. How's it going?
I'm good. We're going to talk a lot about the world of old-time strongmen. I want to kind of differentiate between what that is and what, the strongmen, the competitive strongmen competitions now. But before we get to that, just kind of tell us a little bit of the history of strongmen. I know it's kind of been a part of circuses and sideshows and all kinds of stuff for a long time, but just talk a little bit about the history, if you would.
Sure. It goes back, obviously, if you want to go back to the real hardcore history, you can go all the way back pretty much through recorded time in the Bible and Samson and all that. Strong men, strong people have always been revered throughout time, but a lot of my interests starts from pretty much the Victorian era when they had music hall strongmen and guys like Eugene Sandow, who was have you ever heard that name before?
I haven't, no.
He was basically the first actual bodybuilder. He was insanely strong, but he was the first guy that was really ripped and jacked and used to tour around actually showing off his body for aesthetic purposes. The statue of the Mr. Olympia competition is a statue of Sandow. That puts it in the context at all. So during that era, anyway, the top strength athletes were rock stars. I mean, they were as famous as any of the most famous people we have today, and they would hang out with royalty, and it was like that. So they weren't these goons that just meathead goons and stuff. They were treated like any other celebrity, and that always kind of fascinated me. These guys that would just do this wacky stuff had that kind of social status. And then it just kind of seemed like it veered off as the 1900s came around, and it just kind of lost popularity and started getting into somewhat of a more of a sideshow kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
which I love. I don't use that as a derogatory word whatsoever. I love that stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it just kind of lost its status for some reason. And then nowadays, I hope I'm not answering all of your questions too quickly.
No, you're good.
Nowadays, so that the sports strongman, like the world's strongest man, came around in the I guess in the 80s, started gaining popularity in the 90s, and now it is what it is. And so most people, almost anybody you talk to, you say strongman, that's what they're going to think of. And, they obviously, so that's the most popular thing. But yeah, it's sports strongman, and what you said, old time strongman, is pretty different, even though it all stems from the same place, and there's still quite a bit of crossover. It's kind of like martial arts. Like martial arts all started from pretty much the same thing, and then
Mm-hmm.
different styles. You branch off into different styles that emphasize this and emphasize that. And jujitsu and judo are a good example. Judo used to be jujitsu, and it started emphasizing different things. And hope that was somewhat articulate.
No, that was great. You don't have to worry about answering my questions too quickly. It makes my job easier if you just answer them all. So I wondered, let's say somebody's standing in front of you. We've got an old time strongman, we've got a competitive strongman in today's sense.
Mm.
How is it different? What are they doing differently?
Pretty easy. The competitive sports strongman guys can move way more. Like I'm an old time strongman. These guys can lift way more weight than I can. Any
Mm-hmm.
kind of deadlift over, just sheer lifting weight off the ground. That's their deal. They can lift the most weight. And so there's no question there. An old time strongman, the kind of stuff that I do and my coach does and the circles I run in, it's more of a lot of differences. It's not about how much weight you can, you can use, obviously, you can do weightlifting feats, which are still awesome. The kind of stuff I do is like bending steel, breaking chains, opening horseshoes, and just kind of exhibition stuff like that. That although it's not lifting the most weight you can possibly weight, it's cool to watch because most people and can't do that stuff. So it's an exhibition art form, if you will. You put
Mm-hmm.
a lot of you turn it into an art form. You don't just stand there and go, huh. You make it interesting and make a show out of it.
Right. Yeah. And this is something I wouldn't necessarily normally comment on, but I've seen you talk about it in other interviews. And I know it's kind of part of your public speaking too. And that's kind of doing things that, beyond what you think is possible or what people
Yeah,
think's possible of you. And I feel like maybe one of the differences probably too. I mean, you look like a very fit guy, but you don't look like the Incredible Hulk either.
right.
So I feel like that's probably a difference too. The competitive strongmen, is it safe to say they normally look, I guess, a little bit more menacing?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's another thing. It's a very very different style of training, and it's not based on getting as huge. I mean, those guys have to be that size to move the kinds of weights. Let's just you
Mhm.
know that's
Right.
just how it goes. But there's very different kinds of training, and when you're training to do the stuff that I do, bending steel and all that, it's largely isometric as opposed to lifting weights. You're basically taking something that you can't yet move, and this is a very nutshell way of explaining it, but you take something that you can't yet move and basically try to move it as hard as you freaking can every day, all day until the thing moves. And you would be surprised what the human body is capable of when you just ignore, like, oh, I can't do that, and you try it anyway. It's pretty mind blowing.
Yeah, for sure. I want to know how did you get involved in all of this?
So, have you ever heard of a guy named Pavel Tsatsouline? I might be butchering his name. He's a Russian guy.
I don't believe so.
Okay, so you know what a kettlebell is, right?
Yeah.
Ken. So even though kettlebells are really old, they didn't start getting popular again until the late '90s. So Pavel Tsatsouline was basically the face of the resurgence of the kettlebell.
Hmm.
Um, he's a renowned strength coach, and he has lots of awesome training manuals. So I used to read the training manuals, and in all of his he's another example of he's not a big hulking guy, but he's really really strong. So
Hmm.
most of his training manuals are based on how strong you can get without necessarily getting all big and huge.
Hmm.
So in pretty much all of his books, he would reference these old time strongmen from like the late 1800s, 1900s, and these guys were like most of them no bigger than I am, but they're doing these mind blowing bending steel bars and ripping horseshoes open and ramming nails through boards with their hands. I was like, whoa, how are those guys training and where can I learn it? So that's that's where it all started, and it hooked me. And it took me a long, I tried to train myself and found whatever materials I could, some really old dusty manuals and all kinds of stuff, and didn't get too far on my own, but the interest never left. So I always followed it. And then, by that time, social media had come around, and I started getting connected with more with that world, and eventually found my coach. He's a guy named Chris Ryder, one of the best guys in the world at that kind of stuff. And he started coaching me, and that's how I got into it. Now I
Hmm.
can do all these things that I used to read about and be like, wow, I can't believe people can do that. I say
Yeah.
with modesty and blows my own mind that I can do this stuff now, but it's true. And it's not me. It's like people can do that. You just, like we just mentioned earlier, you might not think you can, but be surprised at what you can do when you just try.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say that if you didn't mention it, where you were talking about how crazy it was that people can bend these horseshoes and put nails through boards. I've watched videos of you doing all of that. So that's really, really awesome for sure. I wondered too, we talked about the history of strong men. We talked about how, they were revered back in Victorian times. They were with nobility and all that kind of stuff. And then it kind of shifted to circuses and sideshows and that kind of thing. And now that's circuses and sideshows are kind of going away too. So my question is, where does this strongman thing, where does it fit in today's society? Where do you see it going?
Where do I see it going?
Or where
No,
it's at now too? Yeah.
yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I personally, I don't think it is going away just because I'm interested in that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I seek it out, and there's a lot to be found, especially now. Circuses now are different. Like Ringling just came back,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people are up in arms about the show because they don't use animals anymore, and everyone, like, yeah, but we still get a circus show. Like that's awesome, and
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a whole bunch of circus shows with zero animals, and they're absolutely amazing. So,
Mm-hmm.
human beings can definitely keep that tradition alive. The sport strongman is as popular as it ever was. I would
Mm-hmm.
hope that it becomes more of a mainstream thing, like any other sport. But
Mm-hmm.
that seems to be slowly but surely gaining popularity.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I don't know where I really see it. All I know is that there are definitely people still keeping it alive. So I
Yeah.
just try to be try to be one of the torchbearers that, keep it alive and make people aware of all these absolutely mind-blowing individuals from the past that people might not have heard of, but probably should.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, as soon as I asked that question, I thought of two things. One, I have been to the new Ringling Circus. It came
Oh
through
yeah,
my town. It was amazing. You definitely don't need any animals, so I thought that was awesome. And
cool.
I feel like that. thinking about it now, the way that circuses are going and not having animals and having more, human acts, that just provides more opportunities for things like you're doing. So that's awesome for sure. And then
Mm.
the other thing is just like you were mentioning, you're in this world, so you don't see that it's dying at all. Same way with me, one thing that I'm really interested in is like board games, that kind of thing. And a lot of
Mm.
people, when I tell people, they're like, "Oh, I feel like no one plays board games anymore." Well, go to these conventions that I go to that have 70, 80, 100,000 people and tell me that it's not, not popular anymore. So it's just all in the niches that you're in. So you're
Totally.
saying there's a huge, I assume there's a huge community doing what you're doing.
No, I wouldn't say
Okay.
it's a huge community.
Okay.
No, it's actually pretty small.
Yeah.
But in a way that's cool because you
Yeah.
pretty much know everybody, you know. And
Mm.
then when you see some guy say from Russia or something that you never heard of doing some kind of gnarly thing that you've actually never seen, makes it really exciting. But no, it's a pretty small, especially if you're talking about the old time, like the stuff that I do specifically, it's
Mm.
a really small community. Yeah.
Gotcha. I gotcha. So I want to now talk about some of the things that you've done and some of, I guess, the accolades that you've gained from it. One is I know that you had a feature in Ripley's Believe It or Not on your website. I see like the little, the drawing. Talk about what exactly that was.
That was yeah, that was a bucket list goal of mine.
Mhm.
So Ripley's Believe It or Not, one of the most famous publications in the world. It actually started as that cartoon that's still running today. That was Robert Ripley, who just do a little one shot, believe it or not,
Mhm.
type of thing. Grew up reading it in the paper is always one of my favorite comics, and the Sunday comics and stuff. And actually, for a while, the artist was a friend of my brother's. He was a guy named John Graziano. For the
Mhm.
last, he only recently retired from the job, but I just missed my brother's friend. I finally got into Ripley's, and
Mhm.
I was,
Mhm.
just seemed wrong that he wasn't the one to draw it. But anyway, just lifelong fan of it. I think Robert always thought Robert Ripley himself was just a fascinating guy. I like old stuff. I don't know. I'm just an old soul. So
Mhm.
that just always loved Ripley's Believe It or Not. And a lot of the guys in my circles that do what I do have been featured in the Ripley's cartoons. I was like, I want to be in the Ripley's feature. So finally got to a point in my skills that I thought of something that would be worthy of doing and made it a point. I reached out. My coach, Chris Ryder, is actually one of the faces of Ripley's Believe It or Not. He tours around with them, and
Mhm.
whenever they're doing demonstrations and stuff, he's one of the people you will see. So he had connections. He hooked me up, and I was like, "This is what I want to do." And they were like, "Yes, let's do that." So I was also, besides that cartoon, I'm supposed to be in one of their books. Not 100% sure if that's still happening. I hope it does, but yeah, that's basically how it came up. So trying not to mash too many things together, but as far as I know, I am the only living stuntman, professional stuntman, and strongman. As far as I know, I'm the only one alive today. So I was like, okay, what can I do that literally nobody else has done before? And I thought of something, and that something was breaking out of two separate chains, one wrapped around my chest, one wrapped around my arms, bang, bang, and then ramming a nail through a board with my hand, all while I was on fire from head to toe.
Mhm.
So I was like, "Hey Ripley's, what if I did this?" And they were like, "That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Can we do this?" Yes. So that's how that happened.
That's amazing, and I want to get to the Guinness thing here in a minute too. I know kind of how that works a lot of times. How with Ripley's, do you have to have somebody come and witness you do this? You send a video, or what's that look like?
Yeah, I sent them a video. Yeah,
Mhm.
and it's similar to the Guinness. process, but with Guinness, you're actually, this is a recognized, world record, so it's way more meticulous, and you need witnesses and stuff like that. But no, the video sufficed for Ripley's Believe It or Not, because
Yeah.
there's no official record. It's just like, hey, this guy did this.
The thing I always wonder when I see those Ripley's comics like you're talking about is it's normally always kind of a split screen. There's two records or two things on those comics. And I always wonder first how they pair them together. And I would always it would stink to like have your big moment to be on there, and then the other one that's on there is just something like so goofy or something, like you just did all that, and the other one is like somebody ate 75 cupcakes at once or something.
Yeah.
I wonder how they make sure they pair them together to not make one person like, well, I wish it was something else.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I have no idea. There's probably something like that on the one I did. I don't remember what the other ones were.
I don't remember either. I don't think it was anything too crazy, or I probably would have noted it. But so we just mentioned Guinness, not to be outdone with your Ripley saying you also have a Guinness record that you're in the book. Talk about what that was.
That was for harding the most horseshoes in 1 minute. I actually have one here. So that used to be in a regular old horseshoe. So harding a horseshoe is when, a lot of people see a strongman bend a horseshoe. So harding it is simply you keep going with the bend until you bend it into this kind of heart shape like you see there. And I got the record for them doing the most of those in 1 minute, which I plan on beating at some point because I know I can. But it's an arduous task to undertake, and you had to train for it and get the whole setup with the official judges and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully someday I'll make that a priority.
No, that's amazing for sure. And I just one last thing when it comes to some of those records. This is the one I understand the least. I know Guinness, I know Ripley's, but you're and there's, thousands upon thousands of people that have Guinness records and Ripley's, but you are among, I believe it's 200 people that's done. What is this red nail thing? I don't understand that one too much.
Yeah, there's a company called Iron Mind. They make a lot of strongman and strength training equipment. They sponsor a lot of athletes that compete in the World's Strongest Man competition. They make really great products. Yeah, they have this thing called the red nail, which is a 7-inch long iron steel bar. It's made of cold rolled steel, which is way, way, way tougher than hot rolled steel. So it's like the hardest steel you can get. 7-inch long bar. I forget the exact measurements of it as far as the thickness and stuff. But and you have to bend it you have to bend the ends within 2 inches of each other using these specific wraps made by the Iron Mind company. So you can't cheat, and the wraps they make it pretty difficult. That's all I'm gonna say. It came out in the 90s, that challenge, and since the 90s, still to this day, less than 200 people in the entire world have done it. And props to my coach. Like, that was kind of one I used to read about that before I could do any of this stuff. I would read about the red nail. I'm like, oh man, that would be cool to be able to do that, be recognized as the red nail bender. But it was like, at the time, it was this pipe dream because, it was so insanely hard. And I started training with my coach, Chris Ryder, and he took me from zero to, I was smashing several red nails just for a warm up when we were training to do it. And you have up to a minute to complete the bend. And I have my video. It was my personal record, I think, was just over 7 seconds, and I got like 10 seconds on my official certification. So it wasn't quite my best, but it was still, I was happy with it. So that's what that is. Yeah, it's a steel bar that amount of people have been able to bend under official rules.
Yeah, and watching that video, I feel like whoever's recording you to document it, it makes sense what you're saying now that they give you a minute and you did it so quickly because the person said, "Come on, keep going." They're like, "Yeah, you're in." I feel like they were even impressed by how quickly you did it. That's what I feel like. Yeah.
Oh no, I did it at where I did it was an honor because it was at a guy named Steve Pulsinilla's Iron Sport gym in outside of Philly, and he was a world's strongest man competitor. So he is that big whole like dude is he's like the Hulk, and I got to do it at his gym, and have it. It's just cool to have it officially recognized by someone from that
Yeah.
stature with that status and everything
Yeah.
even though they can be different.
Right, right. And I wonder with that, because we talked earlier about the differences between the two worlds and, the competitive or these big hulking guys. That's not always the case with old timey, and that obviously means your discipline, probably you're not able to do the things they're doing as far as moving as much as they're doing. What about the other way around? These people that
Yep.
are that strong, are they able to do what you're doing, or is I mean I feel like that takes a totally different skill as well. So
It absolutely does. That's a good question. And yeah, no, it's pretty much the exact same thing. Like a good example is two of the strongest guys in the world right now, bar none. Two of the most famous is a guy named Brian Shaw and Eddie Hall. I don't know if you ever heard of those guys, but they're two of the most famous sports strongman competitors right now. And they will do, I mean, I've seen it myself, but if any of the listeners want to go check it out, they do reaction videos to various different,
hmm.
all kinds of different stuff generally with, in the gym and strength training world. But they have watched. What I like about them is they're the two strongest dudes in the world. So they have absolutely nothing to prove, no ego. So they can watch videos of the stuff like that I do and my coach does and just give an entertained, genuine response like, oh wow, because they don't feel threatened by anything and they can just enjoy it for what it is.
Hmm.
So yeah, they do a lot of these response videos and they've watched all of my coach's stuff, which is all the same stuff that he can do it better, don't get me wrong, but same stuff that I do. And two of the strongest dudes in the world will just sit there and watch my coach doing all the different stuff and they're like, whoa, and genuinely impressed. So yeah, no, I have personally witnessed that it totally goes both ways. I can't lift what they can lift, but usually no, they can't really not to say they couldn't if they trained at it, and did that. Anybody could, in my opinion. But yeah, you're right. They can't. Seems like they both ways. I can't lift what they can lift, but they can't do the things that I can do. Pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
for sure. Yeah, and that kind of brings you up into the next question when it comes to this. And this is you can answer this however you want. It gets a little bit touchy because I've interviewed pretty much anyone that's going to be at a sideshow, at a Renaissance fair. I've interviewed contortionists, I've interviewed magicians, I've interviewed people that do these bullwhip things, all kinds of different things. And I just wonder when it comes to this type of thing, how much of it is tricks, how much of it is skill, how much of it is just pure strength. I mean, you were talking earlier, you're talking about these strong men, the competitive ones could probably do it maybe if they trained. So
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder what exactly that looks like. Is it more just pure strength? Is it more learning the skills behind it? I don't feel like there's any trick behind it, but just answer that if you would.
Sure. I like to be as transparent as possible so people don't think we're a bunch of phonies.
Mhm.
Honestly, I would say it depends who you're watching.
Mhm.
Like if you're watching a strong man or a strong woman or whoever, it really depends on who's doing it and who's comfortable faking stuff or not. The way I was taught was you will be banned if you try to fake anything at all. Like you do not do that. That is like really bad in
Mhm.
my little circles. There are things though that It's some of it is physics.
Mhm.
It depends, once you get a base and you want to expand your repertoire and add this and add that, and you might throw in a thing here and there that's more show than not.
Mhm.
But in my circles, the way I was taught, you do not fake things. That is horrible, and that's you are looked at like a phony, and you should not be representing the community in any way.
Mhm.
Um, can't think of any specific examples, but I can tell you, like any kind of steel bending, you're bending steel. Like that is the most legit thing you can pretty much do, and
Mhm.
that's that's a real sign of strength, and that carries over into actual strength training. Is you can when you're doing things like that. There is a way. One of the big questions is I'm one of the few guys in the world who still tears phone books,
Mhm.
mostly because phone books, those big old school fat phone books, are so, they don't make them anymore. So I just happen to have the one connection of the guy in the world that still has phone books. So a lot of that one, that's a good example. There's a trick you can do with phone books that most people that know me know that I'm telling the truth. But if you don't know me and I'm like, oh, and they see me doing the videos, like, oh yeah, it's a trick. My dad showed me that when I was 5 years old. There's a trick to that, and there's a legit way. If somebody's gonna do the phone book trick, if I had known I was gonna get into the topic, I would have brought one up so I could demonstrate. It's called the popping technique, and they're gonna grab it from the top and they squish the middle down into a V, and then basically they separate the pages so that they're actually ripping one page at a time.
Mhm.
So if you ever see a guy ripping a phone book and he's pulling it apart from the top of the phone book, he's probably using the popping technique, which is a trick.
Mhm.
Now, the way I was taught is legit phone book tearing, and you grab the thing and you rip it in half.
Mhm.
And you can see me doing it. You can also look up my coach, Chris Ryder. He calls himself Hercules,
Mhm.
and he's like he can do it in his sleep. He's so strong at that. He actually does it so easily that a lot of people think he's faking it because he can just do it so
Mhm.
easily, but he
Mhm.
is not.
Mhm.
And if you listen to what I just said and pay attention to what he's doing, it's pretty different if you know what you're looking at.
I feel like you talked about how on your end of things that faking it is a very bad thing, and you're going to get kind of kicked out of your circle. Given you're talking about all these tricks that are potentially available with certain things, that really probably hurts the sport. Given that now there's a lot of people out there that think it's all just is a trick. So you can do the phone book in the right way and not the trick. Does that make showing this phone book thing to other people as fun when half the people think, hey, it's a trick. I know the trick. I don't know. I feel like that would dampen some of the amazingness of it all.
It online, because everyone in the world, if you're showing a video online,
Uh-huh.
that you can run into that. But no, you would be surprised, and I'm still surprised because that's how I would think it. It's like, oh, everybody just thinks I'm going to be doing a trick. No, you'd be really surprised, especially if I'm doing it right in front of you.
Mm.
That's still, even with little kids who don't necessarily know what a phone book is anymore, which is
Mhm.
part of it. You got to a lot your materials and feats that you're doing should be something that people can relate to, so it's like they know how hard it is.
Mm.
Yeah, no, it's pleasantly surprising how much of a response it gets, even with little kids who don't never seen a phone book before, and you bust one out and you explain what it is and you rip it. No, it's not supposed to be one of my showstoppers, but a lot of the times people are like, whoa, and it still has that really good effect. And also, I often do what I just did, and I will explain it to you. Like if I'm
Mm.
gonna do it, I'm like, look, there is a trick. here's probably what they're gonna do if they're faking it. And then I'm like, okay, so now watch closely and tell me if I'm doing the trick or not, and
Hmm.
I'll do it the real way. That's usually how I present it.
No, I love that. And I want to kind of move into some of the other things that you've done and your public speaking in a moment. But my last question with the strongman type thing is you're talking about how when you're presenting it in front of kids or all these other things, when you're doing these things, do you have like shows? Are you putting on shows? Where can we see Todd do these things?
The public speaking, I'm not as active in right now because, as I said, I'm a stuntman, and we just got through the longest strike in Hollywood history.
Hmm.
So everything is, we're getting back to the grind and playing catch up on a lot of things. So I'm very busy, but usually when I'm doing them, it's at schools and business meetings, and some usually that kind of environment.
I got you.
But you can go if anybody wants to book me. You can go on my website, the Strongman Todd Jones, and you can do everything through there. I am extremely busy at the moment, so not my schedule is pretty crazy, and not a whole lot of time to do that right this second. But if anybody wants to see me, that's how it can be done.
I gotcha. Tell us a little bit about it sounds like maybe your full-time work, and that is in stunt things in movies. I'll tell you now, I had a stuntman on, it was about a year ago. So, we spent an hour talking about it. So I know a little bit about the business. So I just want you to tell us some of the things that you specialize in that world, and then maybe some things that you've been in.
Sure. I'm curious, who was the stuntman you had on?
I knew you were going to ask me that. While you're answering it, let me look it up, and then I'll tell you at the end.
Okay, cool. What did you specifically want to know? Stuff I've been in?
Yeah, and then he specialized in like sports movies
Mhm.
and doing football and basketball, and then he also was starting to learn like motorcycle things. I just wonder if you have a specialization.
Yeah, no, not really. What I usually work in is TV as opposed to movies. I do get movies from time to time, but it's almost always television. I was actually working on Blue Bloods yesterday, and I'm
Hmm.
completely exhausted right now. I hope that's not coming across. I didn't want to cancel on you. Yesterday was brutal. Whew.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's mostly television, pretty much everything that they film on the East Coast, primarily in New York and that kind of area, the tri-state area out
Hmm.
there. So I don't personally really specialize in anything. It's mostly the needs for the kinds of shows that they film out of New York. A lot of crime shows, a lot of police procedurals, and stuff like that. So bad guy cop stuff, SWAT stuff, mostly that kind of stuff. Getting beat up and that
So,
kind of thing.
so are you do you mostly do things like you're a stunt double for somebody, or you're like a background actor, or a police officer that is doing all the crazy stuff? I know there's two different worlds there too.
Yeah, both. Yeah, definitely. A background actor is very, very different
Mhm.
on in that world. But yeah, both. Pretty much half and half. Double a guy one day, and then you'll be a. They call it probably what you meant. They call it an ND, nondescript guy. You're just some dude, yeah, in the crowd that happened accidentally gets shot by the bad guy or whatever, stuff
Right,
like that.
right.
Yeah, it's a mix of both.
Yeah. The stuntman that I interviewed, he wrote a book about it too, was Kevin Cassidy.
I'm not familiar with
I believe he's in Los Angeles. I think he's been
him.
doing it for a while. I think he's actually he wrote a book and now he's starting to public speak. I think he's moving a little bit out of it because I think that he's maybe getting a little bit older, but I'm not sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's understandable. It hurts. You
Yeah.
start getting older, you're like, man, what else? What else can do? I myself actually started writing. Just wrote my very first screenplay, which has
Huh.
been doing well, and there's a lot of activity going on around it. So it's pretty exciting.
That is awesome. I don't know where stage it's at. Do you want to talk any more about that, or is it in NDA stage.
I don't want to talk too much about it, but
Yeah.
it's called the Strongman. Surprise, surprise. I had
Mhm.
actually initially conceived of it a long time ago before COVID. And what the intention was to have it as a vehicle for me to star in. One of the hooks being like all the feats that the strongman is doing are all real. So I'd really be bending steel and breaking chains and all that stuff. That was a while ago. I'm no longer interested in starring in it, but I did want to, start that venture and see if that's a world that I can do something with in the writing world. So I did it and I completed it and took a serious stab at it and worked with a professional writer to get it to actual professional standards and been shopping it around lately. And as I'm shopping it around, I'm not trying to sit back and wait for something to happen. So in the meantime, I've also put together a very strong team of other professionals, special effects guy, and another really well-known person in the stunt world. And so if nothing happens externally, we are going to try to make something of it with our little team. So one way or the other, it's seeming like something's going to happen. But it's cool. I just, I've been doing the, I guess, obligatory things that a screenwriter does, and you submit it to the various competitions and stuff. And I've won a few, much to my surprise. So it seems like I might have something here.
No, I love it. Fingers crossed. More to come with that for sure. I know that you said that you're not doing a ton of the public speaking thing. You're busy back in shows because of the strike kind of made everything happen right now. So I just wonder though, because I've heard you talk a little bit about these themes before. When you are having these public speaking engagements, or even just to talk to the listeners now, what's the themes that you cover?
Perseverance. It's primarily perseverance above all else, which I really seriously believe is the key to pretty much any goal you can think of.
Mm-hmm.
Perseverance and how to make whatever goal it is that you have, how to make things work for you specifically, as opposed to just following what somebody else did, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's extremely important. We all have these qualities, and that we can really utilize that you might not think that you can, but you can. Every good quality you have, you can use that and make the most of it. So those are the two things that I really talk about. Perseverance over all else. Don't stop. If you have a goal, a real goal, it's probably going to be difficult, and that's why you view it as a worthwhile goal.
Mm-hmm.
And just I truly believe that just not stopping, even when it feels like you should and it feels like nothing's happening, that's totally normal. Don't stop. And I really think that alone, perseverance, will get you somewhere that you wouldn't be if you gave up. Just doing that, nothing else, not stopping. Just, it's so incredibly important.
I'm sensing the theme that I'm sure all the things you've accomplished is in the strongman world, all the things you've accomplished in the stuntman world probably took no perseverance, right?
Yeah, exactly. Nothing, none whatsoever.
Right.
That's pretty much my exact point. Like,
Right.
I by no means am I any kind of big shot, especially in the entertainment world, but I make a living. I'm just this regular guy. I never moved out to Hollywood or anything like that, and I make a living in a very small percentage of people that actually make a living doing what I'm doing. And I'm not I'm not some special case or anything. The main reason is that I just didn't stop.
Hmm. No, I love it. And I really appreciate your time today. I want you now just to kind of tell people if they want to follow along with you, they want to, keep up with what's happening with you, maybe keep up with what's happening with this screenplay. How are they going to follow along?
Oh my goodness, with the screenplay, that's a loaded question.
Well, I'm just asking for whatever you want to plug. You don't have to worry about that if you don't want.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not too big on purposely making my social media presence known, but
Okay.
at Todd Ryan Jones is a good way to follow me. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. You can, kind of embarrassed to admit it, but you can find all my stuff on TikTok. I do go on there. It doesn't hasn't
Yeah.
really done too much, but yeah, at Todd Ryan Jones is a good way to follow me. If you want to get a good feel for what it is that I do as far as public performances and stuff, you can go to the strongman That'll show you pretty much anything you want to see, and you could even get a hold of me through there.
No. Well, I'll tell you, I really, really appreciate your time today.
Likewise, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, it's an honor to be on. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. So that was Todd Ryan Jones. Really, really appreciate his time. Learned so much. I had no idea about strongmen, period. Definitely didn't know there was these two different worlds. Thinking about it and seeing these people in circuses and seeing them, I guess historically we think of strong men that are, in Barnum and Bailey and stuff like that. I didn't think about how that's kind of the same type of thing as the competitive strongmen, but just doing it in a very different way, I would say a more entertaining way, where one side is about accomplishing a certain weight goal and competing versus others, where this is a lot more about entertaining a crowd. And I urge you to check out both of the worlds of strong men. I urge you to check out the world of old time strong men that Todd is so passionate about. I would urge you to go check out his videos. He didn't necessarily want to promote himself too much, but his videos are amazing on TikTok and on Facebook, and he's got an Instagram as well. All of the links to his information will be in the show notes, and his website will be in the show notes. Check those out for sure. I think you'll be amazed just by the videos, and I'm sure in person it's even more captivating. So thank you, Todd, for being here. Thank you, listener, for being here. If this is your first time listening, go leave a 5-star review on Apple and on Spotify. I appreciate that very much. Leave a written review on Apple. That's even more amazing. If you do nothing else, though, catch us next week, because another great guest then. Take it away, Chris.
This has been Not in a Huff with Jackson Huff. Thank you for listening. Be sure to join us next time, where we will interview another amazing guest who is sure to make you laugh or make you think. Or, hey, maybe even both. But until then, keep being awesome.